Standing before the window of a flower shop, Margo admired the fragrant array of blooms. She adored flowers, and her husband Walter, knowing this, often surprised her with bouquets, both for special occasions and just because. Today, however, she was not choosing flowers for herself. Margo looked around for a salesperson. Nearby, a young woman in a neat apron and gardening gloves was finishing up with a customer who had selected several deep burgundy roses with long stems for a bouquet. "One moment, please, I'll be right with you," the saleswoman said kindly, noticing Margot's gaze. The customer paid, took his bouquet, and headed towards the exit, while the young woman approached Margo with a friendly smile. "What kind of flowers are you looking for today? We just received a new shipment. The roses are all fresh, and our garden lilies are simply exquisite. Just look at them." The saleswoman pulled out a beautiful branch of lilies from a vase. "The white ones are stunning, but the pink ones are truly a marvel." "And the scent," Margo agreed. "I love flowers myself, but today I need to choose a bouquet for a man. You see, it's my husband's birthday. He's turning 40, and I suddenly realised I have no idea what kind of flowers to give a man, or if I should give them at all. Roses are perfect for both men and women, but for men you should avoid small buds, pink hues and any ribbons or bright shiny wrappings. Dark red roses are a classic and timeless choice." "Yes, that would be lovely," Margo replied. 10 minutes later she took the bouquet and hurried out of the flower shop, her heart filled with joy and anticipation. Stopping by the wine boutique on her way home, Margo selected a bottle of her husband's favourite cognac as a gift. She asked for it to be packaged along with the bouquet in a gift basket. Getting into her car, she took a positive pregnancy test in a nice box out of her purse and put it inside the basket. That was her main gift to her husband. Only then she headed home. The preparations for the celebration were in full swing. Music played, hired waiters set the tables in the garden, and appetizing aromas of festive dishes wafted from the kitchen. Several cars were parked along the fence, and early guests had already begun to gather for the host's birthday. Walter was nowhere to be seen in the yard, so she headed into the house. Just as she reached the door, she bumped into him. "Walter, I've been looking for you," she said excitedly. "I need to tell you something important right away." "Margo, I've been looking for you too," Walter replied with a gentle reproach. "You disappeared without a word, just said it was a surprise and left me here to handle everything. I'm the birthday boy, after all, and I have to run around and take care of everything. Besides, I have some news for you too." Walter wanted to continue, but his phone rang in his pocket. He apologised, took out the vibrating device, glanced at the screen, and said, "Margo, darling, let's speak a little later. It's an important call. I have to take it." The celebration was in full swing when Margo noticed that Walter, who had been the centre of attention, had suddenly vanished. She scanned the crowd but couldn't find him. Assuming he had stepped away for a break, she decided to look for him in the house. Walter often retreated to his study when he needed some quiet time, so Margo headed there without hesitation. The door to his study was slightly ajar, and she could hear voices inside. She paused, hearing an unfamiliar female voice say, "Look, this is my little one. Doesn't he look just like you?" "He really does," Walter replied with a smile. "When I was little, I looked just like him, judging by my childhood photos. But why didn't you tell me about him right away?" "Walter, I felt awkward coming to you, and with a child too," the woman said. "I was afraid you'd think I was trying to burden you with him, especially since you've already helped me so much." "Nonsense, Kerry," Walter replied. "I love children and have always dreamed of having a family. But Margo has issues, so it's not that simple." "Walter, if you ever want to confirm kinship, I'm ready to provide a DNA sample right away," the woman said seriously. "No, that's not necessary," Walter said casually. "I can see the resemblance in his round blue eyes and little button nose. I don't need a test to see a family bond." Margo stood frozen in shock, her heart racing as she processed the revelation. "Look, your little one has my nose and my eyes," Walter said, and the woman replied, "I'm so glad you turned out to be an honest and decent person, Walter. I'm so grateful to you. If you only knew." "It's nothing, really. I'm glad you came into my life. Come on, let's go meet the guests. I'll introduce you to everyone." "Maybe we shouldn't," the woman hesitated. "They're all so fancy and dressed up. What will they think when they see me? And what will your wife say when she finds out about me?" "Kerry, stop it," Walter said firmly. "You're not some stranger, and your son is related to me too. Let's go." "Good heavens, what am I hearing?" Margo finally came to her senses, quickly stepping away from the study door. "Does my husband have another woman? And not just any woman, but one who has given birth to his child? And this is when I found out about my pregnancy." Stepping out of the house, Margo paused, indecisive. She understood that the simplest thing to do now would be to approach her husband and demand an explanation, but she suddenly felt humiliated and deeply ashamed that she, the lawful wife, had not been able to give Walter a child, while some other woman had. She then felt a surge of jealousy towards this stranger named Kerry, with whom her husband had been speaking so tenderly in his study. "What should I do now?" she agonized. "I should have gone straight to him and demanded an explanation, instead of standing like a beggar at the door, listening to my husband, who promised to love only me, being so affectionate with this unknown woman. And where did this Kerry come from? I didn't notice her arrival. She must have snuck into the house secretly, taking advantage of the general commotion and festive atmosphere. No, I've had enough. I don't want to deal with any of this, and I can't stay here any longer." She pushed through the crowd of merry, tipsy guests and went to her car. Getting inside, Margo was surprised to find the bouquet of roses, her husband's favourite cognac, and positive test still on the back seat, along with the gift basket. In her haste to share the good news with Walter, she had forgotten to congratulate him on his birthday. "Fine, he has plenty to keep him busy without my congratulations," she thought bitterly, and started the engine and drove away from the house. Let him worry and think whatever he wants. Since childhood, Margo had dreamed of having a car. She loved speed, the thrill of driving and the rush of wind against the windshield. When she married Walter a year ago, he soon gave her a brand new sports car, practically the car of her dreams. Periodically, without needing a special reason, Margo would take the car out for a spin on the high-speed roads, which often worried her husband, who saw cars merely as a means of transportation. Driving onto the highway and picking up speed, Margo suddenly realised that she had forgotten to change out of her fancy evening shoes into more comfortable driving shoes. "Never mind, it's evening, the road is quiet. I'll drive for a bit, calm down, and then go back and demand an explanation from my husband," she thought, accelerating again. The powerful sports car flew down the highway like a bird, the smooth ribbon of asphalt unfurling beneath the wheels. The speedometer nearly approached its maximum, but the speed did not frighten her. Instead, it strangely calmed her. Relaxing, Margo suddenly felt that she had clearly overreacted, failed to understand the situation, and rushed out of the house like a foolish, impulsive girl. "That's it, Michael. I can't walk any more, I'm tired," said the young homeless woman, throwing her worn-out bag full of junk found in city dumps onto the highway. "Let's stop and sit for a bit, maybe under that tree," she said, pointing a dirty finger with a broken nail at a field aside the road. "What are you talking about, sister?" retorted her companion, who looked just as dishevelled. Dressed in a worn denim suit and sporting a scraggly beard, he looked like a man of indeterminate age, but an obvious lifestyle. "Look, the sun is already setting. Before you know it, it'll be dark. Or are you planning to spend the night in the middle of a field?" He sneered, but picked up the bag she had thrown down. "I'm tired and hungry," the homeless woman declared, refusing to move. "Anita, sister, do you think I'm not hungry too?" Michael retorted. "We did eat a bit before heading back. Remember? We found a whole bag of stale pies in the dumpster by the cafe. You ate more than I did." "That was ages ago," Anita whined. "Those pies were difficult to chew and not very filling. You promised to take care of me, remember? So take care of me now. I'm tired and hungry. All the time. Got it?" "You're a bottomless pit. You're tiny, but you eat like a horse. I know what you're up to," Michael replied, exasperated. Earlier that day, the siblings had lucked out while scavenging through city dumpsters. They found 5 cans of beef stew, likely discarded by someone. Anita immediately wanted to open one of the cans and eat it, but the more practical Michael insisted they wait. "What's the point of eating it now?" he reasoned. "You'll just gobble it down and be hungry again in no time. Let's wait until we get back to our place. We can heat it up and make a proper meal out of it." "I'm hungry now, and you're such a miser, Michael," Anita shouted, plopping down on the asphalt. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll sit here all night if I'd like to." "You can't tell me what to do. I'm 18. I can do what I want. I can smoke, drink, and hang out with guys if I'd like to." "Get up. Cars drive on this road," Michael said, looking around at the deserted highway. He picked up his sister and dragged her off the road. "Scared, huh?" Anita taunted, struggling to free herself. "Give me a can, or I'll throw myself in front of a car, I swear." "You're insane, you know that?" Michael snapped, pulling a can of stew from his backpack. "Here, and don't you dare say you're hungry again any time soon, understand?" He led her to a nearby tree off the road. Anita, finally getting her way, followed him without a fuss. Sitting down under the tree, Michael pulled out a dirty knife and a bent aluminium spoon from his pocket. He opened the can and handed it to his sister, who devoured the contents in seconds. "Happy now?" Michael asked, as Anita licked the empty can clean. "There's more where that came from," she hinted, eyeing his backpack. "You're unbelievable," Michael said, shaking his head. "You just ate a whole can of stew, and you're still hungry. You're like a black hole. Come on, let's go home." He stood up and kicked the empty can away, grabbing his sister's arm to lead her back. "Let go of me!" Anita yelled, breaking free and running towards the highway. "Give me another can, or I'll throw myself in front of a car." Suddenly, the sound of a distant engine grew louder, and a sleek sports car appeared on the horizon, speeding towards them. "Stop, you idiot!" Michael shouted, noticing his sister's small, awkward figure darting across the highway in front of the speeding car. "Stop, you'll get hit!" he yelled, chasing after her. In the small evening clutch lying on the passenger seat, Margot's phone rang. Keeping one hand on the wheel and her eyes on the road, she reached for the bag with her other hand, fumbling for the phone. "Ah, there you are," she muttered, seeing that Walter was trying to call her. "I won't answer," she decided, though her earlier enthusiasm had waned. However, Walter, sensing something was wrong, persisted in calling her repeatedly, and Margo finally answered. "All right, I'll be home soon, and we'll talk then." She began to slow down, intending to turn around and head back home. As she reached to put the phone back in her bag, Margo glanced away from the road for just a moment. When she looked back, she gasped in horror and slammed on the brakes. In the headlights, she saw a small figure darting across the highway, followed by another. Margo, caught off guard, tried to brake hard, but her heel caught on the carpet, preventing her from stopping quickly. She swerved towards the shoulder, drove across the field, and finally came to a halt as the car's front end collided with a tree. "You idiot! You stupid fool!" Michael yelled, catching up to his sister and grabbing her by the collar. "Look what you've done! You've caused an accident, and someone might be hurt or even killed because of you!" he raged, shaking her. All right, let go," Anita pleaded, suddenly meek. "You'll tear my jacket and it's already worn out." "You won't get me a new one," she added, trying to pry his strong fingers off her. "You're worried about your jacket?" Michael snapped, though he released her. "What about the accident you caused? What are we supposed to do now? Call the police?" he demanded. "Michael, please don't call the police. I didn't mean to," Anita begged, frantically adjusting her tattered clothes. The man turned and headed towards the car, which had come to a stop in the field near a tree. Anita, at a loss, silently followed him. Approaching the car, Michael leaned down and peered inside. It was not yet completely dark, so he could easily see a young woman slumped over the steering wheel, held in place by her seatbelt. She showed no signs of life, but there was no blood in the car either. Michael opened the door and checked her pulse. "What's going on?" Anita asked, peering over his shoulder into the car. "Is she dead?" she asked indifferently, eyeing the woman's shiny evening bag on the passenger seat. "Keep your hands off!" Michael slapped her hand away. "The last thing we need is the police accusing us of theft on top of the accident. She's alive, just unconscious. Looks like she hit her head," he said, checking the woman's pulse. "Hey, lady, wake up," he called out, gently slapping her cheeks. When she didn't respond, he rummaged in his backpack and pulled out a plastic water bottle. "I'll splash some water on her face to revive her," he said, pouring a little water into her mouth. "She's coming to," Anita noticed, seeing the young woman stir. "Let's get out of here before she sees us," she urged, suddenly forgetting about the shiny evening bag she had been eyeing. "We can't just leave her," Michael protested. "It's almost night, and there won't be any traffic on the highway until morning. She might not be found until dawn." "So what? It's not our problem," Anita retorted, annoyed by her brother's unexpected concern for a stranger. "We can't leave her overnight, that's for sure, but we can't call the police either. Not with you causing the accident." He glared at his sister. "So we'll have to take her with us. Maybe she'll come to her senses and can take care of herself." He pulled the young woman out of the car and laid her on the grass. "Hey, lady, wake up! Come on! Open your eyes!" he said, gently patting her cheeks. Noticing the young woman finally opening her eyes, he said with relief, "Thank goodness you're awake. Come on, miss, get up. You can't lie on the grass, it's damp and cold. And it's getting dark." He helped the dazed young woman to her feet. "Where am I? What happened?" Margo murmured, looking around confused. "You were in an accident," Michael explained. "We found you, and we'll take care of you until you feel better. Lean on me. Let's get you somewhere safe." "I don't know who I am," the young woman stammered. "I don't remember anything." "Well, isn't this convenient?" Anita muttered, quickly snatching the shiny evening bag from the car and stuffing it into her pocket while her brother was distracted. "Some high-class lady you are, can't even remember your own name." "Give her a break," Michael said. "She might have hit her head and lost her memory." When the car was far behind, Anita carefully looked at her brother's back and, convinced that he was not paying attention to her, fell behind and pulled out the coveted find from her pocket. "Look at this!" she exclaimed with delight, examining the expensive item. "It's all sparkling like a diamond. I've never seen anything like it, not even when Mum and Dad were alive, and we lived in a normal apartment like everyone else," she said joyfully. Michael and Anita had not become homeless by choice 2 years ago. The siblings were born into an ordinary family. Their father, before succumbing to alcoholism, worked at a local factory, while their mother, lacking education, worked as a janitor for the local management company. They lived simply and modestly, like everyone else in the neighbourhood on the outskirts of the city. They had never seen extra money, and everything would have been fine if one day their father had not met an old friend. As often happens in such cases, the long-lost friends immediately went to celebrate their reunion, visiting all the local bars and eventually ending up at the home of some acquaintance of the friend. What caused their father, who only drank on holidays, to change so drastically is unknown, but it was after that fateful meeting with his old friend that he began to spiral out of control and soon became a real, perpetually hungover alcoholic. The father was fired from the factory for his constant drunkenness and frequent absences, after which the family's life became even harder, surviving only on their mother's meagre janitorial salary. However, the family's troubles did not end there. The completely alcoholic father was soon found dead on the street. One day, suspicious-looking individuals unexpectedly appeared at the doorstep of their family's apartment, claiming that the owner had taken out a loan using the apartment as collateral. Due to the borrower's death, they demanded either the repayment of the loan or the immediate vacating of the collateral property. Their mother first told the intruders to go to hell, and then threatened to scald them with boiling water from a whistling kettle if they did not leave the apartment immediately. The intruders, not expecting such resistance from an ordinary woman, thought it best to retreat behind the door, but threatened to return soon, and they did. The next day, neighbours found the mother lying beneath the window of her apartment, severely injured. The barely alive woman was rushed to the hospital, but she passed away a week later. Before her death, their mother, realizing that her days were numbered, asked for her children to be brought to her. In the presence of her daughter, she made her son, as the elder, swear to take care of his sister until she was securely settled in life. The police did not investigate the case thoroughly, concluding that the woman had accidentally fallen out of the window while trying to clean it, a tragic accident that could happen to anyone. After the mother's death, those same intruders reappeared at Anita's and Michael's apartment, this time demanding repayment of the debt from the children, their heirs of the suspiciously deceased parents. Anita was in her final years of school when Michael graduated from school last year and had been moonlighting as a delivery boy. There was no way they could repay the debt. The leader of the intruders then advised them not to resist, but to vacate the apartment, which now belonged to their credit organisation, since they had no more. "Get out of here while you can, if you value your lives," he menacingly whispered to Michael. "At least you'll stay alive, and we'll take the apartment, one way or another. Don't doubt it." To emphasise his seriousness, he punched Michael in the stomach. Frightened for himself and his sister, Michael quickly gathered some belongings and documents in front of the intruders, and they fled the city as fast as they could. The thought of going to the police never crossed their minds. "Where will we go now?" Anita wailed as they hurriedly left their home. "Where will we live? There are only fields and woods around." "I don't know," Michael replied grimly. "We just need to get as far away from these thugs as possible if we want to stay alive. We'll find some village to stay in temporarily. Many of them have empty houses," he suggested, trying to reassure his sister. However, things turned out slightly differently. Soon they encountered several travellers who appeared to be homeless. Michael decided to ask them about places where they could stay for free and safely hide out for an indefinite period. "We live in an abandoned children's camp in the woods. There are a few buildings there in pretty good condition. We are comfortable there, it's not far from here," one of the homeless men replied. "The police never come here, and the locals are afraid of us, so they stay away. And what about you? Why are you running away from someone?" he asked. "If only it were that simple," Michael sighed. "Our parents were killed over a debt, our apartment was taken away, and we barely escaped with our lives. Now we're looking for a place to go. Could we stay with you temporarily until we find somewhere else?" he asked hopefully. "Why not?" the first homeless man replied. "You're welcome to stay." living in an abandoned, ruined camp in the forest, turned out to be not as bad as they had initially imagined. The homeless cleared the underbrush, making a nice clearing around a building, and some even tilled the fertile forest soil and planted tomatoes and cucumbers around the edges of the clearing. They fetched water from a small river 1/2 kilometre from the forest, searched for mushrooms and berries in the summer, and went to the city for work. In short, life was tough but manageable. Soon the brother and sister settled in and stayed there for 2 whole years. This was certainly better than lying in the ground with their parents. Anita, however, free from the constraints of school and parents, she became quite unruly. Taking advantage of the fact that her brother was bound by their mother's promise, she soon turned into a capricious and willful individual, constantly nagging Michael with her whimsical character. After admiring the stolen handbag, Anita decided to explore its contents to see if there was anything valuable inside. Pulling the zipper, adorned with a brand logo and a large rhinestone, she opened the clasp and curiously peeked inside. Wow, what a lipstick! And the compact with a mirror! Classy! The homeless girl murmured in admiration, pulling out items common to any woman's handbag. Wow, there's even a phone here! Finally! Now I have my own phone, and I won't give it to Michael, she thought vengefully, glancing at her brother's distant figure. After examining the contact list of the stolen phone, and unexpectedly coming across a contact labelled "Walter, beloved husband," Anita puffed up enviously and grumbled discontentedly under her breath. Of course, some people have loving husbands who give them expensive phones, lipsticks, compacts adorned with rhinestones, while others have to live in a ruined building and eat from the trash. Where's the justice in this world, huh? Suddenly, she had an idea. How much this Walter is willing to pay for his beloved wife. Clearly the man is not poor, if he gives expensive gifts and cars, Anita concluded, and stuffing the phone into her pocket, returned the contents of the handbag, zipped it up, and put it in her other pocket. Well, life seems to be looking up, she said joyfully, and ran to catch up with her brother, who was already far ahead. Upon returning to the homeless camp with her brother, Anita did not immediately go to her own room. Taking advantage of the fact that Michael's attention was occupied by their unexpected guest, she slipped over to one of their neighbours. Descending the rotten steps, she quietly knocked on the shabby door. "Hey, Tony, are you there?" she asked. "If you are, answer. I need to talk to you."
"Anita, is that you?"
A hoarse, smoky voice replied from behind the door, and a shaggy head and puffy face appeared in the slightly open doorway.
"You'd better get out of here. Your brother forbade me to be friends with you. Look at this bruise under my eye. And besides, I'm busy right now."
He lied without hesitation. Anita knew very well that Michael was categorically against her friendship with Tony because of his constant drunkenness and striking untidiness. Anita, of course, remembered her brother's opinion about the neighbour, but she had no intention of listening to him on this matter. "Come on, Tony, relax," she replied carelessly. "Michael is busy with something else. He has a guest."
"What kind of guest?"
The neighbour grumbled without any enthusiasm. "A guest, a woman who is married to a rich man and has money herself," Anita replied.
Well, that's something," Tony smirked. "What would such a chick be doing here? Usually they live in country houses and foreign villas."
"I'm not making this up. If you don't believe me, go see for yourself," Anita huffed indignantly. "This woman just got into a car accident and Michael brought her to us for the night because she needs help. And no one drives on the highway at night."
"And how do you know she has money and is married to a rich man?"
Tony doubted.
"Even if she does, what do we care about her money?"
"Look at this phone she has," Anita replied, showing her find to the neighbour. and there's a number saved as Walter, beloved husband. So I thought, what if this Walter doesn't know where his wife is and is looking for her, and we call him and quietly demand money for the woman who is sitting in our dwelling with Michael. In the worst case, we set a price for the information on where to find her. Want to make some money, Tony? Anita asked slyly.
All right, come in, Tony finally decided, opening the door for Anita.
But remember, you'll be the one calling this, Walter, she said, slipping inside. That's why I'm bringing you in on this. He might not believe me. Walter dialed his wife's number once more, again got no answer, and said perplexedly to Carrie, standing next to him, "She's not answering. What's going on?" "What's the point of just calling? Maybe something happened to your wife," the woman replied. "You were told that she was seen getting into a car and driving off about 30 minutes ago. Maybe it makes sense to go and look for Margo yourself," she suggested.
"Yes, you're right," he said anxiously. "Our guests will be partying until morning anyway, so I'll go look for her now," he decided, heading to his car parked by the entrance.
"All right, then I'll call a taxi and go back to the hotel," Carrie replied. "What's the point of me staying here? I've already done the main thing. Finally met you."
"Oh, no," Walter disagreed. "Since you've turned up, you should stay with us for at least a few days. I've already arranged a room to be prepared, so I won't let you go anywhere."
"Then I'll come with you," Carrie said. "You never know. You might need help. And besides, I don't want to stay here without you," she admitted reluctantly.
"All right, get in. Let's go together," Walter replied, opening the car door for Carrie.
Remembering Margot's love for speeding down the highway, Walter thought it made sense to search for her along the nearby highway. Driving out of the elite neighbourhood where their house was located, he stopped at the highway, wondering which direction to start the search. He needed to hurry. The twilight was deepening and visibility on the road was getting worse. After thinking for a few more seconds, Walter turned left and, accelerating, decided to check this section of the highway first. Fortunately, Walter's hunch was correct. Choosing the left side of the road, they found Margot's car about 10 kilometres from the starting point of the search.
"It looks like it's been in an accident," Carrie said with anxiety. "And that's definitely Margot's car," Walter replied, slowing down.
Together with Carrie, they rushed out of the car and ran to the accident scene.
"Margot's not in the car, even though the doors are wide open. There is no phone or her purse either," Walter said worriedly, reaching the car first.
"What are your relations with your wife like? Could it be that you had a fight and she just ran away from you?" Carrie suggested.
"Our relationship is great, and we haven't had a single serious argument in the year we've been together," Walter replied thoughtfully. "In fact, Margo was going to tell me some happy news today, but didn't get the chance because the guests started arriving," he noted, opening the trunk of the car. "See, there's a gift basket with a bouquet and my favourite cognac. So Margo was going to congratulate me on my birthday. She wanted to do something nice for me since she went to buy flowers and cognac herself. I just don't understand why she didn't congratulate me in the end. And, moreover, why would she want to run away on my own birthday?" Walter said, shrugging in bewilderment. "Walter, I think I know what's going on," Carrie suddenly said. "Don't you think the reason could be me? Maybe Margo saw me by chance, thought something wrong about it, and left the house on an emotional impulse. After all, you didn't tell her a word about me," the woman suggested. "It may have sense. But where do we look for her now? And most importantly, what happened to her?" Walter asked anxiously, looking around. "Margo, answer me, please, if you're here!" he called out loudly.
"Walter, wait. Don't get upset," Carrie said, looking into the open car interior. "Shine your phone's flashlight here. I'm a medic, an operating room nurse, and I worked in a trauma centre for several years. I can tell you right away that the accident probably wasn't serious. See, there's no blood in the car, and the bumper isn't badly damaged, so Margo shouldn't have been seriously injured. She reassured him.
Yes, thank goodness for that, but where is she? Walter continued to worry. Margo, where are you? He called out again into the gathering darkness, but received no response.
Suddenly the surrounding silence was broken by the sound of an incoming call. Walter irritably pulled his phone out of his pocket, intending to decline the call, but when he saw who was calling, he muttered in surprise.
It can't be. It's Margo. I didn't even dare hope. Margo, sunshine, where are you? He asked with relief, answering the call. I've been looking for you. My feet are killing me. How could you do this? He gently reproached his wife. This isn't Margo. A raspy male voice chuckled in response. And if you want your wife back, alive and well, then listen to our conditions.
The strange caller rasped, barely able to speak clearly.
Is this some kind of joke? Walter asked, even more surprised. Who am I speaking with? Put my wife on the phone right now, do you hear me? He demanded resolutely. Hey, man, are you deaf or something? The caller rasped back. I'm telling you in plain language. We have your wife, so listen to our conditions, he stubbornly repeated. I'm not listening to anything, Walter retorted. At least not until I hear my wife's voice on the phone. Come on, call her over now.
Refusing to believe that anything bad had happened to Margo, he pressed the raspy caller. There was a pause on the phone. Some rustling and muffled murmuring could be heard.
Hey, where did you go? Hello? Walter said angrily into the phone. Answer me right now. What the hell is going on? He began to lose patience. This guy wants to talk to his wife, Tony said, covering the phone speaker with his hand as he listened to Anita's conversation. What do we do now? Damn it, I didn't think of that, Anita said, puzzled. All right, tell him you'll call back, and you stay here quietly. I'll figure this out. Hey, don't rush, I'll call back soon, Tony said to Walter, hung up and handed the phone back to Anita with a shaky hand. She put it in her jacket pocket, said nothing, and left his room, heading straight to her own. Michael was there, sitting on a crude wooden stool in the corner, peeling potatoes. The injured woman sat nearby on a bench, silently gazing at the shabby walls of the dwelling in bewilderment. Anita paused thoughtfully at the doorway. For her plan to work, Michael was clearly in the way. Where have you been wandering? Tell me, her brother asked unkindly, noticing Anita lingering in the doorway. Were you visiting that drunk again? Confess right now, he demanded. It's all his fault, Anita whined in response. I was just walking by and he jumped out at me. Good evening, Anita, he says. Where have you been? We used to be such good neighbours. And then he slapped me below my spine. She dramatically acted out the made-up scene. What? So the black eye I gave him wasn't enough? But don't worry, he'll get more now. Michael fumed, dropping the potatoes and jumping up from the stool. You stay here, keep an eye on our guest, and finish peeling the potatoes for dinner. I'll be back in 5 minutes, he said to his sister, and looking stern, left the room. Hey, you, take this phone, Anita said hurriedly to the woman as soon as her brother was gone. I'm going to call a guy, and you'll say something like, Hi, dear, she explained, placing the phone in the girl's hand and dialing Walter's number. However, the phone started ringing itself. Walter, who was waiting for the stranger to call back, lost his last bit of patience and started dialing his wife's phone. And what is this? Michael asked sternly, suddenly appearing in the doorway of the dugout. You little brat! He grabbed Anita by the collar of her jacket. And I didn't believe that drunk Tony when he said you were planning to ask money from the woman's husband. I thought he was lying, but it turns out he was telling the truth. The brother shook his sister like a naughty kitten by the scruff of her neck. Give back everything you took from the car right now, he demanded angrily. Meanwhile, The injured guest looked in surprise at the phone ringing in her hand and unexpectedly answered the call, putting the phone to her ear. "Hello? Hello, hey! Answer me right now! Where is my wife?" Walter shouted into the phone.
"Walter, it's me," Margo said joyfully. "Don't worry, I'm fine, I'll be home soon," she added excitedly.
"Great! I knew she'd come to her senses," Michael exclaimed, letting go of his sister. She must have heard her husband. Then he turned back to Anita and sternly said, "Quickly, give me back everything you stole from the car, or do I need to explain something again?" No, I understand, Michael," Anita hastily replied, afraid of her brother's disciplinary measures. "Here, take it. You don't have to ask twice," she muttered, pulling out Margot's sparkling evening bag from her pocket. With a clear look of regret, the homeless girl gave the bag back to its owner. "You keep it, if you like it so much," Margo suddenly said in response. "I should thank you somehow for your help, Michael," she said, looking at the embarrassed Michael. "Well, it's nothing." The man modestly lowered his eyes. "But what about the contents of the purse? Should I return them, or can I keep them?" Anita asked, not letting the conversation drift. "Take it all," Margo waved her hand. "Can you take me to where my car is?" "Of course. I'll take you there right now. Let's go," Michael replied with a smile, and turning to his sister, he added sternly, "And you are grounded. While I'm gone, stay here. Peel the potatoes and then start cooking them. Understand? And by the way, even though you don't deserve it, you've been given such a valuable gift. Where's your thank you?" "Thank you," Anita waved him off, pleased as she admired herself in the compact mirror. "Don't be mad at her," Michael said to Margo. "There's no one to discipline her, and as the older brother, I promised my mother before she died that I would look after my sister. I apologize," he explained. "And please don't report Anita to the police. If she gets arrested, she'll be ruined." "Of course I won't. What police?" Margo replied and asked, "So, your mother died?" "Not just died. She was killed, just like our father," Michael sighed in response. "They died because of the apartment that our father allegedly used as collateral. And they almost got rid of us too. That's why we ran away 2 years ago. Wherever our eyes lead us. And that's how we became homeless," he exclaimed grimly. "Yes, that's sad. I'm sorry," Margo replied. "But 2 years have passed. Maybe everything has settled down. And maybe you can return to your old life now," she thoughtfully noted. "Maybe," Michael smiled in response. "I need to think about it. Well, shall we go? Your husband must be waiting for you, and it's already dark," he reminded her. "Margo, finally!" Walter exclaimed, seeing his wife walking towards him across the field. "And who is this with you?" he asked warily, noticing Michael. Shining his phone's flashlight on him, he asked, "Is this the guy who demanded money?" "No, he is a good man," Margo smiled in response and explained. "This is Michael. He took me in right after the accident, so that I wouldn't have to spend the night in the wrecked car." "You're something," Walter said, "but I can't understand where you are heading at night." Margo was about to reply, but didn't get the chance. "Good evening," a woman's voice suddenly sounded behind her. Margo turned around, and the smile instantly vanished from her face. Judging by the voice standing before her was the very same Kerry, because of whom she had left home in a fit of emotion. "Good evening to you too," Margo replied coldly. "My name is Kerry. I was sitting in Walter's car while we were waiting for you," she explained. "But when you appeared, I decided I should come over and introduce myself." "In Walter's car, I see," Margo acknowledged Kerry with a disdainful look. "Yes, it's really time to meet," Walter decisively intervened. "Margo, meet Kerry, my half-sister, from my father's side."
What? A half-sister? Margo asked in surprise.
I've never heard that you have a sister. I thought I didn't have, but recently, Walter replied happily, she contacted me herself and asked for help. She's a single mother with a small child and got entangled with a ruthless con artist who saddled her with a huge debt and disappeared. But that's a long story. I'll tell you all about it. Margo, believe me, I would never have asked him for help if I weren't in a desperate situation, Carey said fervently. And you did the right thing by asking, Walter replied. I hardly have any relatives left, and now I suddenly have 2 more, he added contentedly. 2? Margo asked. So the child you mentioned? That's my little nephew. And what did you think? Walter laughed. By the way you eavesdropped at the door? That's not nice. He playfully wagged his finger at her. It's not nice to keep secrets from your wife, Margo retorted. Margo, my dear, I wasn't hiding anything, Walter disagreed. I was waiting for Carey to arrive for my birthday and wanted to tell you about her, and you were also going to share some important news with me, he reminded his wife. Yes, Walter, you're right. And yes, this is your birthday present, my dear husband, Margo remembered, opening the trunk of her damaged car and handing Walter the gift basket with cognac and a bouquet. Thank you, my love, I'm very pleased, Walter replied, although, to be honest, I already discovered your gift a little while ago, he admitted. That's not a problem, Margo said, not at all embarrassed. I have another piece of news that will make you just as happy as this gift basket, she said intriguingly. Well, don't keep me in suspense then, Walter urged his wife. What is it? And you, Walter, were wrong when you said that your circle of relatives had increased by 2 people, Margo replied mysteriously. The thing is, your circle of relatives will soon start to grow even more. I'm pregnant. Walter, I got a call from the reproductive clinic today, and they told me that I can have children naturally, without any IVF, she exclaimed. That was the important news. Wow, that's wonderful! Walter looked at Margo in astonishment and, hugging her, noted, That's why they say you shouldn't celebrate your 40th birthday. In my opinion, that's nonsense. Today is the best birthday I've ever had, he confidently added.